How could you do this to me? I screamed, my body shaking uncontrollably. With my own sister? I had imagined this moment countless times, yet nothing prepared me for the raw pain I felt discovering that suggestive text on Ethan's phone. My sister Eliza, carrying his child. At that instant, the life I had built crumbled before my eyes. Ethan reached for my hand, his face etched with panic. Mari, please, let me explain. I shoved him away, bile rising in my throat. Explain how you knocked up my sister? How you betrayed your vows and destroyed our life together? His eyes widened in disbelief. Surely he underestimated my rage, convinced his charm could diffuse any crisis. Not this time. It only happened once, he pleaded. We were drunk, it didn't mean anything. His excuses meant nothing. What mattered was my world fracturing with each word. I saw flashes of our whirlwind romance 5 years ago, the ambitious graphic designer seduced by the charismatic entrepreneur. Such an all-consuming love. I left my job, my family, everything behind. And now, all that remained were ashes. I heard the front door open behind me. Speak of the devil. Eliza strutted in, not a hair out of place despite her evident pregnancy. She assessed the situation with cool nonchalance before resting her gaze on Ethan. I told you she'd find out eventually, she shrugged. Red-hot fury flooded my senses. Lunging towards her, every muscle tensed, I was barely stopped by Ethan's restraining grip. Mari, get a hold of yourself. I wrenched my arm loose, fixing Eliza with a vicious glare. Get out! Get out before I throw you out myself! Eliza simply examined her manicure. You're leaving, Marianne. I'm having Ethan's baby. I'm part of this family now. Her audacity left me momentarily speechless. I turned on Ethan in disbelief. So, I suppose you two have it all planned out? You'll play happy families while I do what, disappear? Ethan shifted uncomfortably under my accusing stare. Come on, Mari. She's pregnant. There's an innocent child involved here. Oh, please, I gave a hollow laugh. As if either of you care about anyone but yourselves. You deserve each other. I shoved past Eliza, grabbing my keys off the counter. Pausing at the front door, I glanced back one last time at the man I once loved so fiercely, now just a stranger eroding my very essence. I'll be out by tonight. You can keep everything else, I just want my freedom. Slamming the door gave me more satisfaction than I could ever explain. Finally acting instead of just reacting felt empowering. A seed of resolve took root within me. I would not let them destroy me too. The divorce papers landed on the table with a dull thud. I stared blankly at the offending documents, the coffee in my hand turning bitter. Another failure to add to my ever-growing list. My body unable to conceive, and now my husband, lost to my own sister no less. I should have seen the signs earlier. Eliza worming her way into his attention whenever she came to visit, borrowing money neither of us could afford to lend. Such a fool I'd been. My phone buzzed. Eliza again. I declined the call, fury simmering just below the surface. Ever since I moved out, she relentlessly hounded me to sign the papers and set Ethan free, as if I was the one who betrayed our vows so callously. But something in me had changed. I was done being the victim. Eliza could proclaim her victory for now. I would let her have this round, but the battle had just begun. I met with my lawyer the next day, playing the part of the remorseful wife to perfection. I would give Ethan his precious divorce under one non-negotiable condition, that I receive full custody of any and all children born throughout the marriage. Eliza could keep Ethan. I had a more satisfying plan in mind. Absolutely not, Eliza yelled when Ethan showed her the amended papers. There's no way I'm letting Marianne raise my child. I simply sat back and sipped my drink. Still your confident self, I see, Liz. But you seem nervous. She flushed. As if. I just don't trust you with my baby. Then I guess you're stuck with me as Ethan's wife. What a pity. I let the threat hang in the air. Checkmate. Eliza's face contorted, eyes blazing with impotent fury. She grabbed the papers from Ethan's hand and scrawled her signature violently across the pages. I smiled inwardly. The seeds were sown. Soon after, Ethan called, his voice weary. The pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. Eliza blames you. She's threatening to go to the media to expose everything unless we take her back. I stifled a sharp laugh. Even now he ran back to defend her. They deserved every bit of misery headed their way. I'm truly very sorry to hear that, I replied, injecting just the right amount of compassion into my voice. Why don't you two come over for dinner tomorrow? We have much to discuss. As I hung up the phone, An unfamiliar emotion washed over me. Was it contentment? For the first time, I felt in control of my destiny. I would see to it that Ethan and Eliza faced the consequences of their actions. This was merely the beginning. Justice would be served. What if we adopted? Ethan blinked in surprise, lowering his wine glass. My suggestion hung in the air between us, the clinking of cutlery filling the awkward silence. Adopted? Ethan finally echoed. But I thought you always dreamed of having your own. His voice trailed off uncertainly. We hadn't broached the topic of children since my miscarriage last year. The pain was still raw, despite our best efforts to reconnect. Maybe an adopted child could mend this brokenness between us. I reached for his hand, injecting a reassuring warmth into my voice. I did, but life doesn't always work out how we plan. We have so much love to give. I think this could be meant to be. I could see the objections forming on his lips. Pressing further, I added gently, "Just consider it, please." Ethan slowly nodded, though his eyes remained conflicted. I hid a smile. The hook was set. The adoption process moved swiftly, the caseworker strangely accommodating. Barely 6 months later, we welcomed home a beautiful baby girl named Sophie. My breath caught as I cradled her for the first time. With her chestnut eyes and dimpled smile, she could have been my own. As I rocked her to sleep that first night, I allowed myself to imagine this was my second chance at motherhood, perhaps even at rebuilding our fragmented marriage. Eliza turned up on our doorstep the following week, bearing ostentatious gifts and false cheer. As she swooped Sophie into her arms, an uncomfortable familiarity lurked behind her delighted coos and affectionate cuddles. When she reached to feed Sophie her bottle, my smile froze. "You seem comfortable with her," I said lightly, watching them over my tea. "It's almost like you know her." Eliza glanced up, her face carefully blank. "What do you mean? I'm just a doting auntie." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Over the next year, 2 more adopted children joined our family, a boy named Alex, followed by baby Zoe. My initial joy eroded each time Eliza visited. Her hungry stare as she played with our children set my teeth on edge. And the way the kids flocked to her, it was almost as if she was their mother. The realization slammed me like a gut punch late one sleepless night. I recalled Sophie's brown eyes and Zoe's cupid lips, both echoing Eliza's features in an uncanny fashion. My feverish mind raced, piecing together every suspicion and odd look over the past 2 years. Eliza's familiarity with Sophie, her extended vacations conveniently overlapping with each new adoption. I crept to the nursery, gazing down at the sleeping angels who so innocently aligned our fates. If my wild theory proved true, my hands trembled as I eased the door shut. No, surely it couldn't be, but I had to know for sure. Tomorrow I would pay Eliza's doctor a discreet visit. If she was involved, there would be clues, evidence I could use to unveil the truth. And then, I promised myself as I collapsed into bed, Ethan and Eliza would finally pay the ultimate price. "Mrs. Marianne, how lovely to see you." Dr. Bott beamed as I entered his office. "How may I be of assistance?" I returned his smile tightly, gripping my purse. "Well, doctor, I was hoping we could discuss my sister Eliza's file. You see, she asked me to pick up a copy of her recent test results, but forgot to sign the release form." I held my breath. Surely the ethical doctor would refuse my thinly veiled attempt to access Eliza's private records. But to my surprise, he nodded affably. Of course. Let me just pull up her files." He peered at his computer screen, brow furrowing. Strange. It seems access to your sister's files has been restricted, only available to direct family members due to the sensitive nature of her case." My pulse raced. This had to be it. Schooling my features into nonchalant curiosity, I asked, "Sensitive nature?" The doctor eyed me warily. "Well, yes, relating to her pregnancy and delivery dates, but as her sister, I suppose I could permit a quick peek." Hook, line, and sinker. Holding my breath, I circled his desk as Dr. Bott opened Eliza's file. My stomach dropped. There it was in stark black and white. Eliza's due date correlated exactly with each of our adoption dates. Sophie, Alex, Zoe, all her children, with Ethan as the father. An icy rage unlike anything I ever felt crystallized within me. So this was their sordid game. Pass Eliza's bastards off as adoptive children to keep their ruse intact, all while bleeding me dry and playing devoted family. Monsters, both of them. Dr. Bott's voice jolted me from my dark reverie. "Mrs. Marianne, is everything all right?" I blinked rapidly, struggling to rein in the tempest whirling within me. Yes, apologies, doctor. Just the pregnancy hormones making me overly emotional, I lied smoothly. Thank you again for your help. I strode from his office in a daze, the truth strangling any naive faith I still harbored in true justice. But revenge, that I understood intimately. An eerie calm settled over me as the final pieces clicked into place. Ethan and Eliza would pay tenfold for their sins. Over the next few weeks I watched, biding my time. Eliza flitted in and out of our home with increasing regularity now, while Ethan conveniently worked overseas. One blissful extended family, except I could no longer stomach the pretense, not when I knew what lurked underneath their carefully crafted lies. Sure enough, late one evening, Eliza revealed her true colors with stark candor. Perched casually on my kitchen counter, she met my glare with cool impunity. It's time, Marianne. Leave Ethan so we can finally be a real family. Her smile never reached her eyes. I think the children would prefer their actual mother too, don't you? Red spots danced across my vision. It was now or never. With ruthless precision, I launched my counterattack, washing away her arrogant smile. You seem rather confident for an adulterous fraud dependent on her sister's charity. Eliza visibly paled. My assault was just beginning. Soon Ethan and Eliza would curse this day, the day their twisted fantasy came crashing down. Eliza recoiled as if struck, the blood draining from her face. What did you just say? She whispered. I smiled coldly, perching on the edge of the counter next to her. You heard me, dear sister. Did you really think I wouldn't uncover your sordid little secret? Her eyes blazed with impotent fury. You know nothing. I love those children. I'm their mother. My answering laugh held no mirth. Is that what you tell Ethan when he's f***ing you behind my back, that it's true love? I leaned in closer, my voice deathly quiet. You are nothing but a parasite leeching off this family. Eliza straightened defiantly, the initial shock morphing into arrogance. Once Ethan finds out you hid the truth about the children's parentage, he'll hate you. Her lips curled into a spiteful sneer. Face it, Marianne. You've already lost him to me. Red spots danced across my vision, rage choking my breath. With immense satisfaction, I watched Eliza's smile falter as I regained my composure. She always did underestimate me. Time to unleash my masterstroke. Oh, I'm counting on Ethan's hatred, actually. In fact, why don't we call him right now? Have a nice family meeting, too. Clear the air. I held up a hand as Eliza opened her mouth to protest. Wouldn't want to create even more secrets, would we? Checkmate. I had her well and truly cornered. Wrestling back her mask of nonchalance, Eliza shrugged. Fine. Tell him whatever you want. It won't change the facts. The slamming front door heralded Ethan's arrival 30 minutes later. His confusion shifted to dawning unease as he took in our confrontation. Eliza refused to meet his gaze. I smiled brightly, belying the icy rage within. What perfect timing! Eliza was just explaining some important news about our children. Why don't you tell him? Trapped, Eliza lifted her chin. Those kids are mine, Ethan. I'm their real mother, and you their father. Shock and disbelief warred on Ethan's face. He alternated between us, struggling to process her revelation. What? How is that even possible? Perhaps this will help clarify things. I slid the DNA test results across the counter towards Ethan. As he scanned the damning document, all color leached from his face, the irrefutable truth staring back at him. No, it can't be. He looked utterly crushed, this ultimate betrayal shattering his world. I stood calmly amidst the debris of my broken marriage, surveying the destruction I had wrought. Finally, I could execute the retribution I had carefully orchestrated all this while. Did you really think your deceit would go unpunished? I murmured. You both deserve nothing less than utter ruin for what you've done. With an eerie smile, I picked up my phone and dialed 911. Soon, Ethan and Eliza would truly comprehend the meaning of loss. My reckoning was just beginning. This is insane. You can't do this! Ethan bellowed, his face mottled. I surveyed him and Eliza dispassionately as the police officers slapped handcuffs on their wrists. Eliza remained mute, shock and despair chasing across her face. I warned you both. Did you think there would be no repercussions? My voice rang out clearly in the deathly silence. I nodded curtly to the lead officer. Take them away. As Ethan and Eliza were hauled towards the door, reality seemed to slam into Eliza. She twisted violently against the officer's grip. My babies! "You can't take me from my children!" Her agonized cries echoed down the street. I shuddered, the shrieking nightmarish soundtrack to my daydreams. But I steeled myself. There could be no mercy on my road to justice. The lawyer I hired was ruthless, leaking choice details about Ethan's indiscretions and Eliza's deceit to the media. I watched dispassionately as the sensational story unfurled. Prominent entrepreneur father's children with wife's sister under guise of adoption. Bold tabloid headings blazed across newspapers and gossip sites. Ethan was forced to resign from his company, raking up huge legal fees for custody disputes and divorce settlements. Cut off from his family's financial support, he relied on selling his assets to fund Eliza's exorbitant bail requirements. Meanwhile, Eliza descended into chaos, hauled into court repeatedly, only to collapse under the trauma of separation from her children. Stripped of visiting rights pending custody hearings, her anguished phone calls at all hours were my only clue to her rapidly deteriorating mental state. 2 months after their arrests, I received an unexpected call from Ethan's lawyer. His voice unusually subdued, the lawyer requested an urgent meeting. I arrived at his office the next morning braced for battle. Instead, I was met by a broken man, all arrogance erased from his face. "Marianne," Ethan choked out, "haven't you punished us enough?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean ensuring you face consequences for your actions?" He surged forward desperately. "Eliza's not coping without the children. She tried to take her own life yesterday." For a brief moment, remorse threatened to unsettle my resolve. I clenched my fists, forcing back the unwelcome sympathy. They deserved no grace after what they did. Ethan seemed to sense my hesitation. Quietly, he asked, "If not for us, then for the children at least?" I stilled. The children, innocent pawns in this twisted game between us adults, they did deserve a chance at normalcy again. But Ethan and Eliza? Death was too easy an escape for them. My next words sealed their fates. "Tell Eliza if she wants her children, she must publicly admit to every single deception before a judge and jury." I paused, twisting the knife deeper. "And you will take full custody of the children and raise them yourself." Ethan recoiled. "No, I can't. It will ruin me." I bent forward, smiling coldly. "Then I guess Eliza will remain childless and in prison indefinitely until the next custody hearing. Make your choice." His shoulders slumped in defeat. When he raised his head, all remaining hope had leached away. We both knew they now faced complete and utter ruination on my orders, and nothing satisfied me more. A hush fell over the packed courtroom as Eliza took the stand, her emaciated frame drowning in the shapeless jumpsuit. I noted with detached satisfaction the dark shadows haunting her eyes and limp hair falling across her ravaged face. "State your full name for the court," prompted the judge, not unkindly. Eliza's voice emerged hollow, each word dragged unwillingly from her throat. "Eliza Anna Morrow." As she recounted every excruciating detail of their deception under blunt questioning, I watched the growing disgust dawn on the jurors' faces. Eliza spared no one in her admissions, candidly confessing to plotting with Ethan behind my back almost from the beginning, deliberately seducing him during my lowest moments, before callously passing off their children as my adoptive family. "And how did you feel, Miss Morrow, deceiving your own sister so heartlessly?" The prosecution aimed the final dagger. Eliza hunched further into herself, refusing to meet my impassive stare. At first, vindicated, but later, only ashamed and afraid. The admission hung leaden in the air. I surveyed the damage left in the wake of this brutal assault. Eliza utterly destroyed, her sins stripped bare for the world to judge. Burying my last remaining specks of pity, I sentenced her to oblivion. As expected, the judge granted me full custody, permitting supervised visitation for Eliza only. As Eliza was hauled back to prison, the hearing delivered its second blow, awarding Ethan primary custody given his financial ability to provide for 3 young children. The court ruling, paired with Eliza's gut-wrenching testimony, generated sensational headlines for weeks after. I watched detached as my legal team skillfully manipulated the public narrative, the innocent wife betrayed by her adulterous husband and manipulative sister. As my inbox flooded with messages of sympathy and outrage, the judge's stern pronouncements rang in my ears. Ethan and Eliza condemned to suffer the consequences of their selfishness for years to come. On my way home, I paused by the children's new house, glimpsing two small shadows pressed against the window. My heart constricted. Could I truly sentence them to a childhood deprived of their actual mother? You've shielded them from worse, I reminded myself. They would endure and emerge stronger, too. Meanwhile, Eliza continued unraveling despite our children's eventual return into her life. Her supervised visits reinforced just how much she had lost. I made sure she understood that no maternal rights meant no legal claim to shape their future in any way. She could only watch helplessly as they called me Mom. With his assets gutted by legal fees, Ethan struggled raising 3 young children alone. Crippled by debts as Eliza fought him at every turn over custody agreements, his business ventures failed one after another. I almost pitied seeing that once proud, smooth-talking entrepreneur reduced to a frantic shell of himself, pleading with me for financial help for the children's sake. Almost. As I sipped my evening glass of wine, gazing out at the city skyline from my penthouse window, an unfamiliar sensation washed over me. Not quite peace, but a sinister contentment. I had wrought justice from cruelty by turning Ethan and Eliza's hearts against them. For the first time since that wretched day I discovered their deceit. I breathed freely, knowing I had finally won. I surveyed the now empty house, memories assaulting me from every corner. Laughter once echoed within these walls. Now only ghosts remained, of the naive woman I used to be, and the future I had imagined. The movers shifted awkwardly, unsure what to make of my strange vigil. With a deep exhale, I turned my back on this relic of my past. Time to build something new from the ashes. Settling the sale of the house took far less time than I anticipated. Signing the papers lifted an invisible weight off my shoulders. The deed symbolized my closing the door on the tumultuous years with Ethan. I could finally face forward again. My lawyer called the next week, her voice uncharacteristically tentative. "Marianne, I wanted to inform you that Ethan was rushed to the ER last night with heart problems. His condition is currently critical pending surgery." I absorbed this news impassively. Once such news might have devastated me. Now I barely registered concern. Please keep me updated on anything pertaining to the children's custody. Otherwise, Ethan's affairs no longer involve me. Nothing grasped my attention over the next few days, quite like glimpsing my sister's name flash angrily on my phone screen. I had wondered how long her forced radio silence would last. This should be entertaining. Come to gloat about Ethan's downfall? Eliza's acid tone dripped down the line. Haven't you ruined us enough already? I reclined back calmly, refusing to let her provoke me. On the contrary, I was just thinking what a beautiful day it is for new beginnings, but I applaud your resilience, Eliza. Lesser women would have crumbled long ago under such pressure. Her answering laugh held no mirth. Spare me your magnanimity. Unlike your lapdog Ethan, I don't grovel. What's your price for letting me share custody of the children? I considered her venomous proposition, the familiar thrill of holding power almost intoxicating. Dangling freedom before her desperate eyes would be so easy. No, I refused to sink to her level anymore. My only interest is the children's welfare as their legal guardian, I replied evenly. Any custody arrangements going forward will prioritize their needs first. Eliza scoffed. How very noble. Enjoy this smug victory while you can, then. Someday, somehow, I will make you pay. The line went dead. I set down the phone calmly. Her pathetic threats no longer penetrated my newfound armor. Eliza remained trapped in her fixation for vengeance and validation. I had moved on. The following months passed in a blur. I relocated cities to minimize painful reminders, donated the last of the children's baby items, pursued new hobbies and friendships. Slowly but surely I was rediscovering my independent spirit, the woman I was before passions blinded me. I still received sporadic updates regarding Ethan and Eliza. Bankruptcy, rehabilitation, even attempted reconciliation on their end, which predictably self-destructed within months. 2 destructive souls incapable of taking ownership for their actions. Meanwhile, Sophie, Alex, and Zoe continued thriving in my sole care and the stability I provided. Occasionally I caught glimpses of Eliza's mannerisms and Ethan's smile reflected on their sweet faces. But rather than bitterness, a quiet pride swelled within me. However ignoble their origins, I loved these children fiercely, with my whole heart. They were undeniably my own. Gazing out across the sunset-streaked harbor, I raised my wine glass in a silent toast. to new adventures ahead, and leaving toxic ghosts behind. For the first time since my world shattered that fateful night, I sensed the promise of healing. I had weathered the crucible and emerged transformed, stripped of naivety yet renewed in purpose. Scarred but wiser, I stepped forward to embrace this unfamiliar yet beautiful terrain. My next chapter was just beginning.